Om. 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 Satchidananda Rupaya Vishwotpatyadi Hetave Tapatraya Vinashaya Shri Krishnaya Vayam Numaha. Janmadyasya yatonvayadi taratascharteshvabhignyaswarat Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye Muhyanti Yatsurayah Tejo Vari Mridam Yatha Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Mrisha Dhamna Svena Sadani Rasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahi Dharma Projita Kaitavotra Paramo Nirmatsaranam Satam Vedyam Vastavamatra Vastu Shivadam Tapatrayon Mulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kimva Parerishwaraha Sadyo Hridyavarudhyate Kritibihi Shushrushubistatchana. Hari Om and greetings from Cleveland. How many of you, by a physical show of hands, would like to be free of kshuda, which means hunger? By show of hands, you never want to experience hunger. Okay? Trisha, which means thirst. Okay? This one for sure. Jara, which means getting older. You stop putting your hands up, you're too old to do it. Mrityu, which means to die. How many of you want to be free of death? So, are you sure you're hearing me right now? Should I use the mic? Moha, which means confusion. And shoka, which means sadness. If you had your hand up for all of this, that means you want to go to Swarga. In Swarga, or heaven, there is no hunger or thirst, nor no aging or dying, no confusion or sorrow. Now, what else is not in heaven? There's no garbage in heaven, okay? You're talking based on experience. What else is not in heaven? Mukti, very good. There's no mukti, there's no shanti. In Swarga, there's no vichara. Vichara means to reflect, to feel that there's more to life than hunger, thirst, and so on. And those who don't reflect, those who don't engage in vichara, their lives are filled with vikshepa. What are English words for vikshepa? Projections, and in terms of relationships, it's expectations. The less shanti you have inside, the more expectation you have outside. What we are doing in our Vedanta and Bhagavata course is we are engaging in vichara together. And I know everyone's life has gone through rough patches. I know many of yours intimately. I know mine intimately. It is our fortunate for such roughness because it helps us to engage in vichara. And when we engage in this reflection, that's when we start to live for mukti, or freedom. That we don't just want to avoid being hungry and confused. We want to be independently joyous. I'm going to say that one more time before I continue. All of the hard times of your life that could be going on right now, some of you feel that as I teach Bhagavata, this is the hardest part of your week. All of this roughness where there is hunger and thirst, where there's aging and dying and so on, those are all opportunities to reflect. I have found that people who escape from Vedanta, it's because the world hasn't brought them to their knees yet. Keyword being yet. The world will bring everyone to their knees. I feel the proactive way to approach this is be strong enough so that you don't have to be brought to your knees. The 11th section of Srimad Bhagavatam is known as the head of Bhagavata. And another word for this is mukti. This whole section focuses on how we can be free. And the reason for this is that Bhagavan Krishna is going to become unmanifest. I was interacting with a seeker yesterday, and he was asking me, what is the greatest change you've observed in yourself since completing the Vedanta course? And now in this room, nobody knew me before the Vedanta course, thank God. I don't know if you'd be here right now if you knew me before the Vedanta course, other than my wife, and we're still married. I don't mean that in a yet way. I mean, we're married, period. And I shared with him that the greatest change I observed in myself is I've become very independent. I've become very independent of articles, circumstances, beings. By definition, that is mukti. When one is not dependent, one feels free. In this 11th section, chapter 23 is also known as Bhikshu Gita. In this chapter, what is highlighted is greed. And what greed can do to one, it brings 15 specific vices. One of them is matsarya. What is the English word for matsarya? Jealousy, correct. Jealousy is an awful vice. Agreed? And a genesis of jealousy is greed. Those who are not greedy, they don't feel jealous. Chapter 24 focuses on the gunas, that all of us have different colors inside of us. Sometimes laziness, sometimes aggressiveness, sometimes quietness. Chapter 25, if there's gunas, what is the foundation for those gunas? Maya. You cannot touch Maya, you can only infer Maya. The more one is clear about gunas, or qualities or limits, then one starts to feel that Maya is real. Maya is having an influence on me. Chapter 26 is also known as Aila Gita. In Aila Gita, what is focused on is lust. In chapter 23, it was not kama or krodha, but lobha. We already know kama and krodha. It comes out strongly in Bhagavad Gita, but there's not a lot of teachings on lobha. Bhikshu Gita focuses on that. Kama, krodha, lobha. What are the next three enemies that live inside of us? Moha, mada, matsarya. How many of you don't know what I'm talking about right now, by show of hands? These vices. Okay, good. They're known as the 6 enemies. Every one of us has 6 enemies that live inside of us. They are kama, which means desire. I want you to visualize that kama is like a parent, a parent. If this parent is there, then the kids of kama are krodha and lobha, which means anger and greed. Then these kids have grandkids. So in this scheme, grandkids, that is moha, mada, and matsarya. Moha means confusion. Moha also means lust. Mada means arrogance. And matsarya, I just mentioned, is jealousy. Who's the parent? Desire. If desire is there, kids are coming. What are the kids' names? Anger and greed. And even if you haven't given them names, you still feel them. And then these kids have more kids. What are their names in English? Confusion, arrogance, and jealousy. Now, these grandkids have so many kids that we don't have names for. I think we call them stress, anxiety, worry, and so on. So this Aila Gita talks about confusion. When you're confused, you become more extrovert. One becomes lusty. Now, the 27th chapter, which we just completed, focused on Kriya Yoga. What is the more simple word for Kriya Yoga? Puja. Puja. Bhagavan Krishna shares that there are 5 places where one can offer puja. He focuses on the where first. I'm repeating this to you. Standile, which means a drawing on the ground. Agnau means in fire. Surye means in the sun. Apsu means in the water. Hridi means in the heart. So a dvija, that's someone who knows that there's more to life. This is where they can offer puja. Now, what's remarkable about this, I sometimes come across presentations on cultures and religions, and their sentiment is that one can offer puja in a very exclusive way. It can only be done in this building, in this way. But you see, who's teaching this? Bhagavan is teaching this, that you can worship me in any of these 5 places. And there's one more interpretation I want to share here. It's a 6th place. The word dvija can mean the one who is practicing puja in these 5 places, or dvija can also mean another place where you can offer puja to one's guide, to one's Sadguru. Don't we call Bhagavan Krishna the Jagat Guru? Meaningful to all of you. And I feel it's perfectly aligned with our earth. You can worship on the earth, you can worship in fire, you can worship in the sky. So that's the where. In this where, we, in our culture and our religion, do have icons. In fact, every religion has icons. We just accept it. I don't think it applies to this school, but if you go to a Catholic school, what icon will you see everywhere? A cross. That's an icon too. When people offer namaz, where do they offer namaz? In which direction? To Mecca. That's an icon too. We accept that we need icons. We need emoticons, we need emojis, we wear bindis, we have wedding rings. Those are all icons. Bhagavan Krishna shares, my icon can be made up of 8 materials. I'm rereading this to you. Number 1, shaili. That means this icon is made up of rock, of stone. In most mandars, it's shaili, correct? Number 2, darumai, made of wood. Number 3, lauhi, which means made of metal or metals. Number 4, lepya. See, that's lepya right there. It's a drawing. It's a painting. In this case, it's a color printer. It's still lepya. Sorry, I said lekya, right? Lekya. So number four, these words are very similar to me. Number 4 is lepya. Lepya means sandalwood paste. Sandalwood paste. Number 5 is lekya. That's what I just mentioned. Number 6 is saikati, which means it's made of sand. Number 7 is manomai. It's made in your mind. And number 8 is manimai. Who knows what the riches are at the Tirupati Mandir, correct? Because it's manimai. There's so much of jewels that are attached to Bhagwan. I have found this chapter and these details to be most empowering, and it makes you very proud about Sanatana Dharma, about how there's no exclusivity. Where can you worship? Anywhere. With what can you worship? Anything. That's why in our culture, you can't take God's name in vain. I've shared so openly that we're trying to teach our children when they exchange bodily functions, that they should say Om Namo Narayanaya. When our kids burp, fart, they're sort of timid, but then they say Om Namo Narayanaya. It's good that they're remembering Bhagwan's name. Think about how many times you've burped in your life. Now, if you did japa for each time, you'd be more enlightened. So, with anything, the implication of this chapter on Kriya Yoga is that first, you have to surrender all you have, and then you have to surrender all you are. This chapter is about surrendering all you have, but the fulfillment is all you are. When one engages in a puja, there are 3 entities. The pujaka, as in the person who's offering puja, that is the subject. Then puja, that's the offering or the verb. And then there's the puja, that is the altar, the object, the ends. The finality of puja is where the pujaka becomes the puja. If you are a bhakta of Bhagwan, what should happen to you? You should stop being a bhakta and you should become Bhagwan. Now, all of you, when you engage in puja, do you feel this? Are you becoming Bhagwan? We act like it and nobody else is Bhagwan. Let me distill this a little bit more because it's so important. Bhagwan Krishna is sharing, more important than any verb is the virtue of Shraddha. More important than the technicalities is the faith. And when you are faithful, then you can offer, you can practice in a simple way. I've shared with many of you, those who serve with me, I serve with you. Most of us study together, whether it's Bhagavata or our Upanishad. That's why I insist that we study together, because then we can be more direct, correct? I don't have to say, please do this, or thank you for doing this. We just have that directness. Agreed? We have faith in each other, so we can be more simple in our relationship. I would really like for all of us to start to practice offering puja. For the sake of simplicity, here is one way. Whatever you know of puja, you may not know the mantras, so just chant your Ishta mantra or a mantra you know for every step. One of the steps is Avahayami, where you invoke that divinity. Instead of that, just say Om Namah Shivaya. At the end, there's Udvasana. You push the altar away. If you don't know what the word Udvasana means, say Om Namah Shivaya. If that's too challenging, sit in front of your altar, close your eyes, and visualize that you are offering puja. Visualize you're washing Bhagwan's feet. Bhagwan is chewing the pan you gave him without any sort of intoxicant. If that is too challenging, then what one can do is talk to God. Don't even close your eyes and visualize. Just talk to God. How many of you are in the Practices to Perfection course on Thursdays? Many of you are not, so I'm going to briefly share a story with you that happened to me about talk to God. Many years ago, I'd returned from Boston to Buffalo, and it was late at night, and so I didn't ask anyone to pick me up. I took a taxi to where my car was parked. And when I got into the taxi driver asked me, "Where do you want to go?" And I gave him the address, and he said, "I don't know where that is." And I'm very tired, and I don't know the direction. So I said, "If you can get me to this general area, I can get you into the neighborhood." And he said, "We have a deal." A very bulky, burly person. And I'm just looking out the window. That way, we just don't have to talk. I would just like to do nothing. But he keeps looking at me, and he sees that I'm wearing a tilak. And he says, "Where are you coming from?" "Boston." "What were you doing there?" I shared, "I teach philosophy as a social service. I'm a volunteer." And he goes, "I have a philosophy too." So here I'm trying to avoid talking, and he just keeps talking. And so his philosophy is, every morning when he wakes up, he talks to JC. And he tells JC, "Please give me work, keep me safe." In between customers, he talks to JC, talking about the Buffalo Bills and the weather. And at the end of the day, he thanks JC for keeping him safe, giving him work. And as he's describing this to me, I'm thinking to myself, here Vivek is, I went to the ashram, I know a little bit of Sanskrit, and I'm telling people about prarthana, but he's living this. And as we're about to get to the home I have to go to, he tells me he has 7 kids. At this point, I was just married, and I was like, whoa. We're still married. And all of them are in college or have graduated. He's not a taxi driver in Los Angeles or New York. This is Buffalo. And that to me was him offering Kriya Yoga. How should you engage in puja? Talk to God. Be dear to God, be near to God, be God. Chapter 28. We shift from Kriya Yoga to Jnana Yoga. This is the last teaching chapter. This is the last teachings of our Bhagwan. Just like in the Bhagavad Gita, the final section of the Bhagavad Gita is on Jnana, so too the final chapter of this section of Bhagavata is on Jnana. After this chapter, the focus is on Bhagwan Krishna and Rishi Uddhava. That's chapter 29. Chapter 30 is about the war. The civil war that happens within Bhagwan Krishna's family. It is an awful chapter. What Bhagwan Krishna's family does to each other, what Bhagwan has to do to his family. And then in chapter 31, which is the final chapter of this section, what happens to Bhagwan? It is not awful because Bhagwan willed this, but it feels awful. So we have some rough chapters coming up. So really tune into this final teaching on Jnana Yoga. I am on the 8th verse of this 28th chapter. Etad vidvan maduditam jnana vijnana naipunam nanindati nacha stauti loke charati suryavat. Etad vidvan, the one who knows, mat uditam, what I have taught. And Shri Krishna has taught a lot in this section. This is jnana vijnana naipunam. It went from an intellectual appreciation to a practical appreciation. One is established in this knowing. And here's the most practical element. This is a test of us knowing. Na nindati. What does nindati mean in English? Criticize. One does not criticize. Na stauti or na stuti. What does that mean in English? Compliment. One does not excessively compliment or criticize. One doesn't do it. One doesn't feel it. And now he gives this beautiful visualization. Loke charati suryavat, just like the sun that wanders around the world. We earlier heard about a landfill, correct? Does the sun become stinky because it shines on a landfill? No. Does the sun become more fragrant when it shines on a sandalwood tree? No. So now every time you see the sun, to remember not to say it or feel it in terms of criticism and compliments. When I was in the Vedanta course, Puja Swami Tejomayananda shared this so many times. And I never really understood it till much later, and I reflected on it more. And he always followed this up with, the person you're complimenting today, tomorrow you're going to have to criticize them. And the point that he was and is making is that everything is changing. So this notion of absolutism, that you're just like this or you're just like that, that is not factual. That is not practical. Sharing a couple of insights leading up to this teaching. Bhagavan tells Rishi Uddhava, all subjects and all objects are the same. Vivek is the speaker, you are the listener. If we are the same, what's another word for sameness? Oneness. What's another word for oneness? Infinity. Bhagavan's final teaching is, there is only me, as in Sri Krishna, there is only infinity. All subjects and objects are one. So now think about this. If you're a subject, which you are, why invest so much in objects like they're different from you? Why invest so much in trying to get what you don't have when this is already you? Now, I know that's a subtle thought. Bhagavan is trying to share how relative our experiences are. Can you all think of a time when you thought you couldn't do it? Maybe it was a half marathon. Maybe for us, it was being able to own an ashram. There was a time when you thought you couldn't do it, but you did do it, correct? When I was interacting with a young seeker who wasn't a parent, I was talking to him one day, and he started to cry, sharing, I just don't know how I'm going to be a parent. And now he has a healthy child and he's a healthy father. And I've shared this with you in different ways. Our whole lives, we've disproven ourselves. This is all relative. The relative cannot make you feel absolute. So treat it as relative. Do you remember the last time you had a dream? I think I've shared with all of you when I was in the Vedanta course. See how nostalgic I am? I was lucid dreaming a lot in the Vedanta course. And when I would wake up from my lucid dreams, when you wake up from any dream, what do? When you wake up from a lucid dream, you're like, awesome. That the mind is so powerful. But when you wake up from a regular dream, and if it's pleasant, you indulge it for a little while, and then you go brush your teeth. And if it's bad, you had a bad dream, you got sick, someone died, you feel so relieved when you wake up. Correct? This is relative. This is a dream. You are more. I just told all of our kids, feel your heartbeat, feel your breath, feel your thoughts, and then what should you feel? That Bhagavan Krishna's home is inside of you. Feel that you're divinity. Now here's a more technical thought that Bhagavan shares. Actually, Rishi Uddhava shares this. It shows how much he's listening. He says, samsara is not experienced by the spirit. Samsara means that which is changing is not experienced by the spirit because the spirit is of the nature of awareness. Do you agree? When we're awake and we're dreaming, that doesn't affect awareness. And then he says, samsara is not experienced by the body because the body is inert. If you feel comfortable with who's sitting beside you right now, put your hand on their shoulder. And if you're uncomfortable, tell them not to, okay? Does your hand know whose shoulder it's on? Does your hand know that? No. Your hand is like this envelope. If I put this envelope on your shoulder or my hand, in both cases, the envelope doesn't know, my hand doesn't know. It doesn't know change. If I say I love you, right hand, it doesn't know that I'm right. I'm a hand. So who experiences samsara then? It's not the spirit. It's not the body. Then who experiences this? One more verse. This is verse 12. Here's who experiences this. Yavad dehendriya pranaihi atmana sannikarshanam samsara phalavams tavad apartopya vivekinaha. Bhagavan says, Yavat, which means as long as, Deha, Indriya, Prana, as long as one feels that they are the body, they feel that they're the breath, they feel they're the senses, Atmanaha, Sannikarshanam, then one will feel that they are changing. Specifically, Samsaraha, Phalavan, Tavat, as long as you feel that you are the body, breath, mind, you will keep on moving away from yourself. Apartaha, this is meaninglessness. This is avivekinaha, one who is not reflective. You know why we feel like we're experiencing samsara? Because we're mixed up. I said mixed, not messed up, okay? We have mixed awareness and the body together. So we've taken some of this and some of that. When you take some of this and some of that with food, it tastes good. It's called khichdi, I think. It's called bisi beli bhat, correct? Some sambar, some rice. But when you do that metaphysically, it only leads to moha, bhaya, and shoka, which means stress, anxiety, dejection. It is this mix. And what does jnana do? The word used is viveka. What does viveka mean in English? Did you say smart? Yeah, good. I like that. discrimination, wisdom. Keep going, everyone. Keep. It comes from the root vich. That's where the English word witch, W-H-I-C-H, came from. Vich means to filter or to separate. So viveka is to separate. This is the body and this is the spirit. And when they're not mixed, we're not messed. We feel dear, near, we are Bhagavan Krishna. Here's my final thought for all of you. Our whole life, we really only had two experiences, I and I am. In the Upanishad, this is known as aham and idam. As long as you feel you are I, you will be joyous. As long as you feel I am. That am is what the ego does. I am the intellect. I am the mind. I am the breath. I am the body. I am articles, beings, circumstances. That's the mix. And as long as you're mixed up, you will experience moha. I'm saying it again. That is confusion. When that's not checked, what happens to Prince Arjuna? Bhaya, which means fear. And when that's not checked, shoka. In chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita, Prince Arjuna's skin is on fire. He's just feeling this hallucination that it's a physical burning, it's a metaphysical burning. For anyone who's burned their skin before, how many of you have burned your skin in some sort of way before? It's awful and it lasts a long time. I had once poured hot water on my, not on purpose. I was pouring it into a cup and too much of it fell and it was just so awful. Luckily, there was no damage there. We've been experiencing this for, I can't even say years, but lifetimes. And now Bhagavan Krishna's final thought. He's telling Prince Arjuna, I've taught you all now is to engage in this viveka, this separation that the body and spirit are different. You are not the body. Just like who's not the body? Bhagavan Krishna. Bhagavan Krishna is not going to die. Even if one says that, they may use that language, but he's not going to die. He just becomes unmanifest. Oh.